What's going on, guys? Let's go over how I made this desk shelf from scratch. So I've just been browsing Instagram and I came across Navizian's latest post of his desk setup. Super cool, super modern, but on his desk, he has this really nice, sleek looking desk shelf. It's a walnut desk shelf. It looks super cool. So I've decided to check out the company who makes them. And they're called Grove Made. And I looked at their website, and for that desk shelf, the price was $220 and over a month wait for shipping. Now that was more money and more time than I wanted to wait to complete my desk setup, so that's why I decided to build one myself. Now I just want to say, guys, I am not an engineer, a builder, a woodworker, or anything like that by any means. This actually might be the first thing that I've ever built that's not out of a box with instructions, so completely custom. So let's break down what I used to make this guy. We've got the wood panel, which is the top of the shelf, which costs just $5. Then we've got the 3 wood pieces for the legs, $5. Then we've got the walnut varnish, $6.99. Then we've got the thin wooden shelf, which was $3.99. We've got some assortments of sandpapers, which was $4.99. We've got 1 black spray paint, which was $3.99. 5 angle brackets, which is just $2. A single piece of felt, which is 48 cents, and then the thin wireless charger to go on the shelf, which is $11.99, which brings the total to $44.43. Okay, so to make this guy, we're gonna need a few pieces of equipment. I've just run down everything that we'll be using, but we're just gonna break down those little things and how they all work together and how we're gonna be using them to incorporate making this shelf. Okay, so we'll be needing wood screws, 1 can of black spray paint. Going to be using a few different pieces of sandpaper. So we've got 3 here so we can get a nice smooth finish. So we've got 60, we've got 120, and then we've got 220. We're going to use the lowest number, which is the 60, to sand over the wood for the first coat to take away any of those harsh edges. And then we're going to use the 120, and then we're going to move up to the 220 to increase the smoothness of that wood. We're going to be using a wood varnish, so it's going to make it look nice and walnutty, nice and dark brown. I'm just going to paint over that a few times. And then the brackets that we'll be using are these type of brackets. That's going to allow us to do is we can screw this side into the legs like this, and then we can screw up into the body of the main piece of wood, which is going to be the desk shelf. So the hinges are going to go like this, attach onto this, they're going to hold those in place. And we can use the exact same hinge for the shelf as well. Then the last thing we're going to be using is just this super cheap piece of grey felt. In the photo in our reference design that we're working from, their shelf has a grey piece of felt over the top and it looks really nice and cool. It was 47 cents, so it's super cheap. And then we're gonna be getting the shelf part and we're just gonna wrap it around the shelf and we're just gonna staple it into place and hold it. So to make this guy, we need 3 pieces of wood and that's gonna be the base of our shelf. We need the 1 long piece, which is gonna be the top of the shelf, and then 3 individual legs, which is gonna be the legs of our shelf. And we need to get those cut to proportion. I'm going to Home Depot to collect the wood so that they can cut it for me. So the first thing that I did was I had the 3 blocks for the legs and I sanded those all around the edges to give it a rounded look and made that nice and smooth. I used the various sandpapers on the sanding block and just sanded those down until they were all kind of looking the same and were nice and smooth. And then I sanded the long top piece of the shelf so that was also nice and smooth. Once our legs are all spray painted, I moved on to the black spray paint and I covered those guys in black spray paint. I waited about 30 minutes for it to dry, flipped them over, sprayed it again, waited another 30 minutes and gave it a second coat. And that was all I needed. It just needed 2 coats to complete the black look on the legs, which was all we wanted. We don't need to worry about sanding or varnishing those as well because we're not going to touch them. They just need to look black for the appearance. And it was important for this was using a black primer as well as spray paint. So it's a 2-in-1 combination, so you don't have to prime the wood or any kind of finishing to the wood. It's all in the spray paint, which was awesome. Once the big piece of wood for the top of the shelf was completely sanded, it was time to just varnish it. So I just got the wood walnut varnish and just painted over the top of that and then waited an hour for it to dry, flipped it over, stained the back, just painted over the top, thin brush strokes, covered the whole thing in varnish, waited a few hours for that guy to dry, used the lightest sandpaper that I had, which I think was 220 grain, and I just very lightly sanded that down so that it was nice and smooth. So attaching the legs to this shelf piece was actually super easy. We just got the brackets that we talked about earlier and we drilled them into the side of the legs first, all three, and then drilled them into the top of the shelf so that they were connected just by one bracket. I could have done two to make it a little bit more secure, but I'm not going to put anything heavy on my shelf. It's just there purely to kind of hide and make things look a little bit more pretty. If you guys want it to be a bit more secure, I would use one bracket on the left and one bracket on the right to hold that leg piece nice and sturdy. So now we've got the brackets attached to the main piece of the wood at the bottom, like so. We can add the second bracket to the piece of wood, which is what our shelf is going to go on. So the three pieces of wood have the brackets here, here, and over here. And now for our end two pieces where we want our shelf to be, that's where we can add the bracket here and the bracket here. So that when we turn it over, the shelf can sit on those two brackets, nice and easy. So in Navision's photo on Instagram, which is kind of what sparked the inspiration for building this desk in the first place, he had a couple of wireless chargers on his desk. And I think he even had one wireless charger, and then you can wirelessly charge on the wireless charger. So I wanted to incorporate some sort of wireless charging into the desk. The logical place was to put it in the shelf. So I bought a thin wireless circle charger, and then I've attached that to the shelf. And then I've used a few pieces of card to attach next to the charger to bring up the thickness so that when the felt runs over the top, it's nice and smooth and flat and there's not a big bump where that wireless charger is. So then when we've got our thin piece of wood for our shelf, we don't need to worry about sanding that because we're going to be wrapping it in felt. So to do that, all I did is I literally wrapped felt around, stapled it, and then cut the edges off, wrapped it around the other way, stapled it, and then folded the sides over, kind of like wrapping a present, and you're stapling in to hold it in place. And then I just used a knife to cut out a little hole at the back, for which is where the cable is going to plug into the wireless charger. Final step is just to screw it into the brackets on the legs. So if you got your measurements correct, our shelf should slot in between our two legs and it should fit nice and snug. And then all you're gonna have to do is just hold it up with one hand and then screw, or like I did, drill down into the bracket, which is gonna go through your shelf. Make sure you don't screw down into the wireless charger. We don't want that to happen. So I knew that my wireless charger was here. I measured it out before to make sure that when I was screwing, I wasn't going to screw into the wireless charger and just totally break it. So once both sides are screwed, that is the end of our build. We've got our shelf, we've got all three legs screwed in, we've got the shelf which has the wireless charger in, now screwed, and now we have the final product. And it was that simple. And that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed the desk shelf. I hope you learned something from it. I hope you get inspired to kind of create something for yourself. I know that I'm certainly going to be doing more home DIY projects with wood now that I've got the confidence after doing this project, and I'm stoked with how the results came out. It kind of completes my desk setup, which I will be doing a video breakdown of very soon. So the equipment that I've got, the lighting that I've used, and how I've got my desk to look the way that it looks. So I will be linking to Navision. So I will be linking to Navision. That's his Instagram username. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. If I'm not, if somebody knows how to pronounce it, let me know in the comments, but I'm gonna call it Navision. So I'll be linking Navision's post, the one that I saw that gave me the inspiration to build a desk shelf. I'll link that in the description so you guys can go send him some love, check it out. If you guys did like this video, consider giving it a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate it. If you wanna see more content like this, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one.